Tackle today, Matt and Mark Justice, the Justice Brothers from Tackle Trading, bringing you all of the charts, the analysis, the key information so that you can be informed in just a few minutes about everything that's going on of importance in the market. Technically, markets attempting to form a high base in both the Qs, in the S&P 500. Very excited to discuss that, get my brother's technical read on that. And if you want to learn about technical analysis, we have an event tonight. Technical analysis is one of the keys to successfully trade. We teach that in our Master Trader course. Go sign up to be a pro. You get to attend that class tonight. We'll talk about that more at the end. Matt, what are you seeing from a technical perspective?
Yeah, from a technical perspective, when you're looking at the market last week, and we are upgrading the market at Tackle Trading, given the fact that we did break out last week of a multiple time frame situation, nice little beautiful cup and handle formation on the S&P 500 itself. Weekly chart was also a beautiful breakout as well. Does that mean we're going to automatically see massive price appreciation? No, but it does show you that you build a little bit more confidence in the market as you do achieve these types of technical achievements when you break out of that multiple time frame, because it's been difficult to break out. It was difficult to break out in July. It was difficult to break out in August. It tested that coming into September. Obviously had some volatility through at the beginning of September. If you remember that September seasonality, 2 candles at the beginning of the month. Ever since then, it's been a bull conversation as they fought back up into resistance and then broke out of that overhead resistance with that oversized cut coming out of the central bank last week. And so you had your high base going into it. Now you're kind of looking at a little bit of just snapback consolidation. This is a fairly good look. Just a little bit of a slow drift on this Monday morning. But as a technician, you certainly do like the breakout that happened last week. And as a technician, you certainly do like the little bit of a snapback there. When you're looking at the indexes themselves, you're not really seeing a massive difference over the last 3 trading sessions, a little bit of consolidation, but specifically on the Qs, you talked about the expectation of a high base. Specifically on the Qs, I would like to see one of those high bases that you called for, a nice little 3, 4, 5-day candle where you kind of dial in that nice breakout of 486, and then you could start talking about perhaps a little bit of catch up in the Qs there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are going to and continue to look for where relative areas of strength are in the market. This will be a developing story that we will cover each and every day here in Tackle Today and have in-depth conversations with our community. While we're tracking broad market technicals, while we're tracking the macro stories influencing the market, there's going to be individual stock news, but I got ahead of myself because there was some economic data today in the PMI numbers. One of the things that we have emphasized in the Trading Justice podcast, and we have a new one that you can listen to released, go to our YouTube channel that you're watching right now, see that. I think, Matt, you named it When Hawks Cry. But one of the things that we have emphasized in that Trading Justice podcast is, listen, rate cutting cycle's begun. We all know that now. Now, how does the economy do? That's going to have a large role of whether that rate cutting cycle is positive or negative. So we're going to be looking after economic data with a very, just very extra importance. We had what is arguably the most important economic data of the week come out in the PMI numbers. Kind of a wash this morning. Is kind of the same story we've seen in services and manufacturing for 2 years now. Mm-hmm. Manufacturing in contraction, services, the bigger part of the economy, in expansion. This morning, Matt, this looked pretty much like every services and manufacturing data point for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I think this was the bigger news of the week this week with the PMI numbers this morning. And when you are looking at those overall trends, Mark, you're absolutely right that PMI manufacturing has been in some degree of recession territory for the last year and a half. Ever since really kind of the fourth quarter of 2022, you have not seen manufacturing data pick up, and you've seen a lot of handles slightly under 50, in between that 47 and that 50 handle. We obviously come in pretty low here today at 47, one of the worst numbers we've had on PMI, and I do think that's why we're seeing a little bit of turnaround story in the dollar here today, meaning the intraday turnaround story was trying to go up, then it came down after the PMI numbers came out. Service services, on the other hand, services has been pretty good for that exact same time frame. Whereas when the economy started to recover a little bit after that 2022 fiasco we all had to go through, services is really the thing that picked up coming out of that situation. And you obviously have seen services up here around that 55 handle for the better part of the last 5 months or so. And so the data today really didn't change anything as of right now. But the Fed really just cut interest rates just last week, and you really don't expect economic changes for some degree of time, because it takes time for these decisions out of the central bank. It takes time for everybody to even understand what the central bank is doing, as it takes time for consumers and businesses alike to make decisions. There's a lagging impact to how the Fed, when the Fed makes decisions versus when you actually see the economic impact through the economy itself. So we're going to take a little bit of time to see how the rate cutting cycle impacts the economy. As of right now, we haven't really seen a change.
Yeah, and then looking ahead this week, unemployment claims is the third release of the GDP, so not a big event there. And then we have inflationary data on Friday. So certainly economic data points throughout the week. Labor market data next week will have a very heightened importance. We'll talk about that later on Friday. Matt, as I was saying a few minutes ago, as we digest all of the macro, there are going to be individual stock stories that hit. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, three stocks in the news here today. GM in the news as they get a Bernstein downgrade down to market perform. That is not a terrible thing if the market is bullish, but you do downgrade. It's probably because they see a little bit of combination on one, improvement in the market, little bit of less in GM there, so they're kind of matching the market versus GM there. And they downgraded them due to rising U.S. inventories and challenges in international operations. Micron on the flip side, they did gain over 1% on the actual cash open, as JP Morgan reiterated their overweight rating ahead of Micron's earnings release later on this week. Micron, one of the more important names to report earnings this week as well. And then Intel's just been in the news a lot recently, as they're quite frankly trying to figure out what they want to do with this turnaround. I should say hypothetical turnaround story, because we don't exactly know what the turnaround story and the plan for specifically Intel and all its different segments is. But they got some news here today on the positive side with the Apollo.
Man, this is the fourth news story in like five trading
days.
sessions on
Yeah,
Intel.
Intel's it's every day they're doing something. They're trying to figure out what they're doing with their company, and it's not every day that you have such a massive important company like Intel for semiconductors and US semiconductors and whatnot. And it's not every day you don't know exactly what that company is going to look like in a week and a half from now. And so, yeah, it's in the news a little bit more. There's no doubt about that. But today, on the positive side, as Apollo Management reportedly offered upwards of $5 billion investment into the struggling company. Let's take a look at Intel from a technical perspective. As we're talking about all-time high breakouts, Intel is not at that all-time high breakout. You've had just an absolute horrific run this year for Intel, which started the year off on a really good note, but it has just been blasted all year long, and it has tried to hold firm right around that 20 to 30 level. And now you're talking about a potential 9 EMA pocket up into the 20 SMA pocket, which is part of the hard 14 that we teach at Tackle Trading. So it's a pretty good look from a technical perspective. You'd like to see some development with the 50-period moving average on the daily chart. But from a fundamental perspective, you would definitely want to see a little bit more to the story in Intel's turnaround story. But from a trader's perspective, starting to look pretty decent on the potential reversal. Like I said, Micron has earnings later on this week. It's one of the more important earnings reports this week. And so just wanted to put that on the radar for our broad-based community. And then when you look at GM is a Tackle 25 stock, and it's a really good Tackle 25 stock, good on the covered call side of the equation. Technically, obviously underperforming a little bit of the market right now. And when you are a Tackle 25 stock, oftentimes when you're in some degree of neutrality, you're focusing on the covered call side of the equation and certainly not the growth. Where does this get a little bit more clean? it gets clean above 50. 50 is a massive important number for GM. And so until that occurs, you do look at it from the cash flow side, setting up a little bit of an ascending triangle. It's an extended version of a cup and handle on the continuation side of the equation.
Yeah, turning to commodities post-Fed. I mean, the pattern development is going to be very interesting. Some gorgeous cash flow patterns. Gold, though, is is just I mean, what do you say that has not been said at tackle trading a million times before? Extending the breakout on gold, the dollar fighting that support level. I don't know how that support level breaks, Matt. If that support level breaks, it's not good for the market because it's going to take a really negative catalyst at this point. How
It,
you
it
looking
would
at
be
the
a
dollar right
negative economic catalyst,
now?
or something on the macro side, obviously. But that I don't know if it's going to break either. I just know
Like labor
it's
market
not going to
next.
break based
Yeah,
on an intraday trend.
no, it is not.
That's what I know. That's what
It's
I
not
know.
going to break on PM9 numbers that relatively were boring, right?
And honestly, all things being relatively equal, the macro to the short term situation, the most likely scenario is some degree of consolidation between 102.5 and 100. That's kind of where I see. But at the end of the day, this is a massively important support level that we're certainly going to track. Now, on the commodity side of the equation, gold obviously looking good here today, following yet another breakout recently on Friday. A little bit of a continuation analysis here today. When you do look at it from a technical perspective with silver, you're seeing a little bit of development, but the real development happens right around 32. Did catch that 9 EMA pretty stinking clean here today on silver. On the copper side of the equation, the exact same thing we're starting to see. Nice little
it's
catch
high
that 9
base week in
EMA.
the market,
It's high
Matt.
base. Well, it's in the commodity space.
Well,
Absolutely.
S&P 500,
Maybe not the
copper.
S&P, but in the NASDAQ, in copper, in silver, in a lot of the market, IWM, for example, I would say a little bit of the same thing. So in the Qs, IWM, copper, silver, yeah, I do think a high base is warranted, and quite frankly, I don't think it's just calling for it. You're already seeing the
You're
development
already
of it.
seeing it, yeah.
The last 3 days is development of a high base in copper. The last 3-4 days in silver is starting to form a little bit of a high base. And so when you do see that, you're looking at breakout type situation, but improving conditions nonetheless. That's what we got for the commodity space. Is we have an important week to navigate in commodities. Finally, starting to see a little bit of the early signs of bullishness in silver, in copper. If the initial move is real, there's going to be some good secondary follow through too.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the Traders Lounge this week with our pro members. I think it will be a lot of fun conversations as we scout out trades, right? That's what we do as traders, scout out trades. And we will be using technical analysis to help guide us. Listen, it's a fantastic time to become a pro member. Get the newsletter, you get a 10 Master Trader tonight. You get to attend those lounges. It's a great community, great coaches, great energy. Come to tackletrading.com, sign up for that 15-day free trial.